The space station was alive with noise, like a giant heart beating with footsteps, voices, and machines. Thousands of beings from every corner of the galaxy filled the main hall. The air shimmered with strange perfumes, metallic dust, and the faint hum of engines deep below the floor. Bright lights from neon signs flashed across tired faces as merchants shouted about rare spices, glowing minerals, and weapons for sale. Ships arrived and departed in endless rhythm, and the hall never slept. Among the crowd moved a single human. His name was Daniel. To most aliens around him, he was just another traveler, a small figure in plain clothes with nothing special to show. Humans were rare on this side of the galaxy, but they were not unknown. Still, many species looked past him as if he was invisible. Daniel walked slowly, carrying a bag slung over his shoulder, his eyes searching for an empty seat. He had been standing for hours. The station benches were always full, taken by traders, warriors, and families waiting for departure. The crowd pushed him, brushed against him, but he stayed patient. That was when he noticed something unusual in the noise and motion of the hall. Not far from him, an old alien elder struggled to move. The being's skin was pale and rough, covered with strange patterns that once might have glowed with strength but now looked faded with age. His robes were heavy and torn at the edges. His hands shook as he leaned on a crooked staff, each step a battle against gravity. No one stopped to help him. No one even slowed down. Beings larger and stronger than Daniel walked past him, eyes cold, expressions hard. Some even sneered. Daniel frowned. The elder's breathing was rough, almost like a whisper being dragged through broken lungs. The crowd around him treated him as if he were a shadow, unseen, unimportant. Daniel's heart tightened. He could not ignore it. Finally, Daniel found one empty spot on a bench. His legs ached, his back was sore, and he wanted to rest. But when he turned his head, his eyes caught the elder again. Still standing, still trembling, as if the weight of the station pressed down only on him. For a long moment, Daniel stood frozen. Then, without another thought, he walked toward the elder. "Sir?" Daniel said softly, though he was not sure if the alien even understood human language. "Here, take this seat." The elder lifted his head, eyes dim but deep, glowing faintly like old stars fighting to shine. He looked at Daniel, surprised. Then slowly, carefully, he nodded. Daniel took the elder's arm gently, steadying him, guiding him toward the bench. The old alien lowered himself onto the seat with great effort, every movement filled with pain but also with dignity. Daniel stood beside him, relieved. He thought it was a small thing, nothing more than human decency. But the hall around him changed. The noise died, the voices lowered, and the endless footsteps slowed. Something heavy entered the air, like the weight of a storm pressing down before thunder. Daniel looked up. Across the vast hall, a group of figures moved through the crowd. They were tall, armored, and terrifyingly silent. Black and silver armor covered their bodies, each piece marked with strange symbols that pulsed faintly like living light. Their steps were perfectly in sync, boots striking the floor with cold rhythm. The crowd quickly pulled aside, leaving an open path for them. No one dared to block their way, elite guards. Daniel had seen their kind only once before, from a distance. They served rulers, leaders, and beings of great power. Their presence meant authority, discipline, and sometimes death. Now those same guards were walking straight toward him. Daniel's chest tightened. He stepped back a little, wondering if he had broken some law he did not know. Was helping the elder forbidden? The silence of the hall grew heavier. Dozens of eyes turned to watch, and whispers began to rise like a cold wind. The elder, still seated, closed his eyes, his hand trembling as it rested on the staff. He did not move, did not speak. The guard stopped only a few feet away from Daniel. Their leader, taller than the rest, lifted his helmet slightly, revealing eyes sharp and glowing like molten silver. His voice echoed in the air, deep and powerful. "Human," he said, his tone more like a judgment than a greeting. "Do you know what you have done?" The question froze Daniel in place. His throat felt dry. He had only given up his seat, nothing more. Yet the air around him was filled with tension so sharp it could cut steel. The hall, once noisy and chaotic, now felt like a giant chamber holding its breath. Every being, merchants, travelers, children, even criminals hiding in corners, watched in silence. Daniel opened his mouth, but no words came. He had no idea what crime he had committed, or why the simple act of kindness had drawn the attention of the most feared soldiers in the galaxy. And then, with a sound like thunder rolling across the hall, The guards stepped forward in perfect unison. The entire station held still. The crowd stood frozen as if the air itself had turned to glass. The tall armored guards had surrounded the bench, their shadows stretching long under the bright station lights. Daniel could hear his own heart pounding loud in the silence. He kept his hands at his sides, careful not to move too fast. The old alien elder sat hunched forward, his thin fingers wrapped tightly around his crooked staff. His breath rattled like dry leaves blowing across stone. Each inhale seemed to scrape his chest, and each exhale came weaker than the last. Daniel's worry grew. He forgot the guards for a moment and looked at the elder instead. "Are you all right?" he whispered, his voice soft. The elder's lips moved, but the sound was faint, a broken murmur in a language Daniel could not understand. He leaned closer. The alien's eyes fluttered half shut, the dim glow in them fading like a dying flame. Without thinking, Daniel reached into his bag and pulled out a small flask of water. He opened it and held it to the elder's mouth. Slowly, carefully, he helped the old alien sip. The elder's hands trembled so badly that Daniel had to steady them. A few drops spilled onto the alien's robe, leaving dark stains. The elder drank, then coughed hard, the sound echoing through the quiet hall. A few in the crowd gasped. Some shook their heads, whispering words Daniel couldn't hear. Others pulled their children back as if touching the elder was dangerous. Daniel ignored them all. He saw only a fragile figure who looked like he hadn't been treated with kindness in a long, long time. One of the guards suddenly stepped forward, armor clanking, voice sharp. "Human, do not touch him!" The command made Daniel freeze. His fingers stayed on the elder's hand, steadying it, but his eyes lifted to meet the guard's glare. "He needed water," Daniel said simply. His voice shook but carried truth. The elder raised one trembling hand as if to quiet the guard. The soldier stopped mid-step, his jaw tightening, his glowing eyes flicking between Daniel and the elder. Then the elder turned his face slowly toward Daniel. His eyes opened wider now, weak but filled with something ancient. In a hoarse voice that scraped the silence, he whispered in broken words, "Kindness. Rare." Daniel blinked, surprised that he understood. The elder's voice was cracked, but the meaning was clear. The guards shifted uneasily. Their armor clinked in the stillness, a sound like restless thunder. One of them muttered something to another in a language sharp and metallic. Daniel couldn't catch the words, but the tone was filled with caution. The elder tried to lift his staff higher, but his arms trembled too much. Daniel reached forward and steadied it for him, gently holding the staff upright. The crowd gasped again. A ripple of shock moved through them like a wave spreading across water. Daniel glanced around nervously. Why was everyone reacting this way? He had only offered a seat, water, and a steadying hand. To him it was nothing unusual. To them it was something else, something that made even elite guards hesitate. The elder's breathing grew slower, heavier. Daniel could hear every breath dragging like chains across stone. He leaned closer again, speaking softly, "Save your strength." The elder looked into Daniel's eyes for a long moment, as if searching them, weighing something hidden. Then he whispered again, "You see me, not shadow." The words pierced Daniel's chest. He didn't fully understand, but he felt the weight of them. The guard leader stepped closer now. His boots struck the ground with heavy finality, each step echoing. He stopped only a few paces away, his silver eyes glowing fiercely. "Do you know who sits before you?" Daniel shook his head, his mouth dry. "No," he admitted. "Just someone who needed help." The crowd stirred at his words, their whispers rising like a storm just out of reach. Some were shocked, some angry, some amazed. The elder gave a weak laugh that turned into another cough. He touched Daniel's wrist lightly, almost feather-soft. His voice was quiet but firm enough that even the guards paused to listen. "That is why you matter." The leader's expression hardened. His soldiers stood straighter as if waiting for an order. Tension gripped the hall, wrapping around every heart like a chain. Daniel stood still, torn between fear of the guards and worry for the elder. He kept his hand steady on the alien's staff, his other hand ready to catch him if he fell. He had no idea why this moment felt so heavy, why the entire hall seemed to hold its breath. The elder's head bowed, his voice faint, but his words clear enough to reach the walls of the crowded station hall. "Witness, the one who gave without asking." Every eye turned to Daniel. The silence broke, not with shouts, but with the sharp rhythm of armored boots striking the floor. The guard stepped forward, their formation closing in. The air grew heavy again. Daniel's pulse raced. He had no clue what was coming next, and then, without warning, the leader raised his arm and shouted a command in their language. The station hall shook with the sound of steel and discipline, as the guards moved in perfect unison. The sound of armored boots filled the hall like rolling thunder. The elite guards formed a tight circle around the bench where the old alien elder sat, with Daniel standing close by. Every being in the station hall was silent now. No merchant called out, no child cried, no ship announcement dared to echo. The entire place had turned into a stage, and Daniel stood at the center without knowing why. The leader of the guard stepped forward, his silver eyes glowing like molten light. His armor gleamed under the station lamps, each piece carved with sacred patterns. His voice was sharp, a blade cutting through the silence. "Human," he said, his tone heavy with authority. "Do you know who this is?" Daniel swallowed hard. His mouth felt dry. He glanced at the elder beside him, still holding the staff steady in his hands. The old alien's breathing was ragged, weak, but his presence carried weight greater than any warrior in the hall. Daniel shook his head. "I don't know," he admitted softly. "I just saw someone in need." The guard's voice rose, echoing across the wide space. "You touched him. You offered water. You dared to place your hand upon the staff of honor. Do you not fear the punishment for breaking sacred boundaries?" The word sent a shock through the watching crowd. Some gasped aloud. Others pressed their faces against each other, whispering in trembling voices. Daniel heard only fragments: forbidden, sacred. No one touches him. Only the chosen. Daniel's chest tightened. He hadn't meant disrespect. He had only done what felt right. But now it seemed that act had broken rules older than he could understand. He took a slow breath and answered, "I didn't mean to break any law. I only wanted to help." The guard's eyes narrowed. For a moment, Daniel thought he would strike him down right there, but instead the leader lifted his hand and the circle of soldiers froze like statues. The old elder stirred, his trembling hand rising. His voice was hoarse, but the entire hall fell silent to hear him. "Do not blame him. He saw me. Not the rules. Not the shadow. Me." The leader bowed his head slightly at the elder's words, but his gaze returned to Daniel, hard and unyielding. "Then prove your heart, human. Answer me this. Would you have done the same if you had known who he was?" Daniel blinked, stunned by the question. The elder's identity still remained a mystery. His frail body didn't look like someone powerful. Yet the respect, the fear, the guard showed told another story. Daniel thought carefully, his mind racing. He could lie. He could try to save himself with careful words. But that wasn't his way. So he spoke simply, his voice steady though his heart pounded. "Yes, I would have helped anyway. A seat is just a seat. Water is just water. Kindness doesn't need titles." A murmur swept through the crowd. Some were shocked, some angry, but others looked thoughtful. The guard leader's expression didn't change, but the faintest flicker of surprise touched his glowing eyes. The elder gave a soft laugh that cracked into a cough. His thin frame shook, but his voice carried far. "Hear him. The words are true." He gave without knowing, without wanting. That is the sign. The soldiers around them stiffened, as if the elder's words carried a command beyond rank. The guard leader lifted his hand again. His tone dropped lower, more dangerous. "Then know this, human, the one you helped is not a common elder. He is the keeper of memories, the last living voice of the old bloodline, sacred to our people. No one touches him. No one sits beside him. For centuries, those who tried were punished, and yet, he permits you." Gasps rippled again through the hall. Eyes widened, tails flicked, claws clicked nervously. Many bowed their heads at the name of Keeper of Memories. Others whispered prayers. Daniel's stomach turned. He had heard of ancient figures in alien stories, keepers who remembered wars, peace, and the rise of empires. But he never dreamed he would meet one, much less share water with him. The guard leader's voice cut through his thoughts. "This is a challenge, human. If you truly acted from pure heart, then you must accept what follows. Once the elder touches you, your life is no longer your own. You carry the weight of his people." "Do you understand?" Daniel stared at him, stunned. The weight of a whole people? He had only given up a seat. He had only offered kindness. And now they spoke as if he had accepted a destiny. The elder leaned forward, his hand trembling as it touched Daniel's arm again. His voice was soft, but everyone heard it as though carried by the walls themselves. He accepts, because he already has. His heart chose before his words. The guards dropped to one knee in unison, their armor striking the ground like thunder. The hall shook with the force. The crowd gasped and bowed low. Daniel's legs nearly gave out beneath him. He wanted to step back, to say it was a mistake, to tell them he wasn't anyone special. But the sight of the guards kneeling, their elite discipline bending toward him, froze him in place. The guard leader bowed his head deeply. Then let it be known. The human is now marked. He is no longer stranger. He is witness. Daniel's heart raced. He didn't know what witness meant, but every being in the hall did. Their eyes glowed with awe, fear, and whispers of destiny. He had come to the station as just another traveler. Now, with the elder beside him and the guards kneeling before him, he had stepped into a story older than himself, and he wasn't sure if he could ever step out again. The sound of armor striking the floor still echoed through the vast hall. The elite guards, feared across the galaxy, had dropped to one knee before a single human. The sight froze everyone watching. Merchants stood with mouths open. Families clutched their children close, and traders who had once shouted prices now held their breaths in silence. Daniel stood stiff, his legs trembling. He had never felt so out of place in his life. His plain clothes looked strange beside the shining armor of the guards and the flowing robes of the elder. He had no power, no title, no weapons. He was just a man who had given up his seat and shared water. And yet, the most disciplined soldiers in the galaxy were kneeling to him. The old alien elder, the keeper of memories, raised his head. His weak body seemed almost weightless in the heavy silence, but his eyes glowed brighter now, warmed by Daniel's presence. He whispered, voice rough but clear enough to carry. "Do you see, human? Respect cannot be forced. It is given freely. You gave me kindness, and so they bow to you." Daniel's chest tightened. His voice was low, almost trembling. "But I didn't do anything special." The elder smiled faintly, though his lips were cracked. "That is why it matters. The greatest things are born from small acts." The guard leader lifted his head but did not rise from his kneeling posture. His silver eyes burned with intensity. "Human, understand this. Our people do not kneel to kings, not even to warlords. We kneel only to truth. You have shown truth of heart. That is more rare than any crown." A ripple moved through the crowd. Many aliens bowed their heads, some in shame for ignoring the elder earlier, others in awe of the moment unfolding before them. For the first time, Daniel noticed tears glimmering in the eyes of a few who had mocked the elder only minutes before. Daniel shifted uneasily. He didn't want this attention. He had never asked for it. His life until now had been simple, ordinary. "Please," he said quietly, "I'm just human. I don't deserve—" The elder's hand gripped his wrist, fragile but firm. "Listen," he whispered. "You deserve because you did not think of deserving. You acted without hope of reward. That is the mark my people waited for." The guard leader stood slowly now, his armor groaning with weight. He raised his hand and the other guards rose in perfect rhythm. Their salute was silent, but the sound of their armor moving together rang like a chorus of steel. They stood at attention, not for the elder, but for Daniel. The hall exploded with whispers. Some cried out in disbelief. Others dropped to their knees in imitation of the soldiers. The energy in the air was electric, vibrating through the walls, through every pair of eyes locked on the human who had changed everything. Daniel felt a lump in his throat. His instinct screamed to run, to escape the weight pressing down on him. But when he looked at the elder again, he saw more than weakness. He saw trust, hope, and something deeper, like a burden being passed across generations. The guard leader stepped closer, his shadow falling over Daniel. "From this moment you are marked. You cannot walk as before. The salute of the guard binds you to the elder's path." Daniel shook his head, confused. "I don't understand." "What path?" The elder coughed hard, his frail body shaking. Daniel steadied him with both hands, ignoring the gasps from the crowd at such bold contact. The elder's voice came out like a fading echo. "Long ago, it was said, one from the stars would bow in kindness. Not for glory, not for gain. The chosen would come, not as conqueror but as friend." The words struck the hall like a bell. The prophecy. Everyone knew pieces of it, though many had dismissed it as myth. And now here was the moment alive before their eyes. Daniel felt dizzy. He wanted to argue, to say he wasn't anyone's chosen. But he saw the way every eye stared at him, He saw the way even hardened soldiers held their weapons close to their chests, saluting him with respect usually given only to legends. The elder's thin fingers brushed Daniel's hand. "Do not fear. Respect is not a chain. It is a gift. Accept it, and you honor me." Daniel's throat tightened. He finally nodded, his voice breaking. "Then I'll accept. For you." The elder closed his eyes, relief softening his face. For the first time, his breathing eased. The guard leader raised his arm high, and the soldiers saluted again, their fists striking their armored chests. The sound thundered through the station. It was not a salute of duty. It was a salute of honor. Daniel stood frozen, heart pounding, his hand still holding the elder's staff. He felt the weight of countless eyes, countless stories, countless hopes pressing onto him. He had not chosen this path, but it had chosen him. And in that moment he realized something frightening but true. Life would never be the same again. The thunder of the salute still echoed in Daniel's ears. The hall had become a place of legends, yet he stood there unsure if he belonged. The crowd had bowed, the guards had saluted, and the elder had whispered of prophecy. Daniel's heart beat fast, his mind swirling with fear and disbelief. The old alien elder leaned heavily on the staff, his body shaking like a dying flame. His eyes, however, were sharp, ancient stars burning behind them. He motioned for Daniel to bend closer. Daniel obeyed, kneeling so he could hear the faint, broken words. "Human, you must know why they salute you," the elder rasped. Daniel frowned. "Because I gave you a seat? Because I helped?" The elder gave a weak smile. "Not for what you did, but for what it means. You are proof that kindness still lives." His words confused Daniel, but before he could ask more, the guard leader spoke loudly, his voice commanding the hall. "Keeper of memories, we must take you to safety." The crowd grows restless and prophecy draws dangerous eyes. The elder shook his head slowly. "No, not yet. The human must hear." The guards exchanged uneasy glances. They were disciplined, but even their steel composure cracked at the elder's insistence. Finally, the leader gave a reluctant nod, stepping back to let the elder speak. The elder turned his eyes back to Daniel. "For generations, my people searched. They tested many, but all failed. We waited for one who would act without knowing, without gain, not for glory, not for fear, only for compassion." Daniel's brows furrowed. "That's all? Just compassion?" The elder's smile deepened, though his face was pale. "Compassion is not small. It is the rarest treasure. Empires rise on fear, kingdoms fall to greed, but compassion builds what nothing can destroy." His words settled heavy in Daniel's chest. He thought of Earth, of his own kind. Humans had compassion, yes, but also cruelty, hunger, war. Could kindness truly change galaxies? As if reading his doubt, the elder coughed hard, his voice hoarse but steady. "Do you think you are first? No, many humans have walked here before. Traders, fighters, wanderers. They all saw me and they all turned away. You did not." Daniel blinked. The thought shook him. Others had ignored the elder, perhaps even mocked him. He wasn't special, but maybe his choice had been. The guard leader's voice broke the silence. "Human, you must understand the danger. If you accept this honor, you will not be free again. Enemies will rise against you. Our traditions will bind you. The galaxy will know your name." The crowd whispered louder, voices buzzing like angry insects. Some muttered in awe, others in envy. Daniel could feel their eyes burning holes into his back. He shook his head. "I never wanted a name. I never wanted honor. His voice cracked. "I just didn't want to see him suffer." The elder reached out, placing his trembling hand over Daniel's heart. "That is why you are the one." His touch was faint, but it burned like fire in Daniel's chest. The elder's eyes glowed brighter, his voice now steady, though his body was weak. "Hear me, human. Long ago our prophet spoke. When the keeper sits and is seen, when kindness is offered without knowing, the guards will kneel and the path of peace will open. That moment is now." Gasps rippled through the hall. Even the guards stiffened, their discipline shaken by the weight of the words. The prophecy was not a myth, it was alive before them. Daniel swallowed hard. "But why me? There are billions better than me. Smarter, stronger, braver." The elder shook his head. "Because you do not seek to be chosen. That is the truth. That is the hidden test. The galaxy honors warriors, rulers, and heroes. But we needed a heart." Daniel's eyes stung. He had never thought of himself as special. On Earth, he was ordinary, just a man trying to live. But here, in this alien hall, an ancient being was telling him that his simple choice carried the weight of destiny. The guard leader stepped forward again, his silver eyes blazing. "Keeper, if you speak truth, then the human cannot stay among the common crowd. He must be taken to the Hall of Memories. The galaxy will demand proof." The elder nodded weakly. "Yes, it is time." The guards tightened their circle. The crowd murmured, some bowing low, others turning away in fear. Daniel felt the shift. He was no longer invisible, no longer ordinary. To them, he was now a figure of prophecy. The elder whispered one last time before the guards moved. "Hidden truth, human. You are not just kind. You are bridge. Between stars, between peoples, between what was and what will be." The words struck deep, heavy as chains and light as wings all at once. As the guards prepared to escort them, Daniel's heart pounded. He had given up his seat. He had offered water. He had shown compassion. And now he was bound to a truth greater than himself. The crowd parted as the guards moved forward, their armor gleaming. All eyes followed the human who had become more than a traveler. And in the silence of the hall, the elder's prophecy echoed, carried on whispers. The path of peace has opened. The walk through the station was unlike anything Daniel had ever experienced. The elite guards marched in perfect rhythm around him, their boots striking the ground with a sound like drums of war. The crowd, once noisy and chaotic, now stood in stunned silence. Some bowed as Daniel passed. Others pulled their children closer, whispering hurried words about prophecy and fate. Daniel felt the weight of every stare pressing into his back. He wanted to disappear, to sink into the floor, but there was no escape. The elder leaned on his staff, each step slow and heavy, but his eyes were steady. Daniel stayed close, ready to catch him if he stumbled. The guards led them away from the public hall, down corridors few civilians ever saw. The walls here were older, darker, marked with symbols Daniel couldn't read. The air grew colder and the lights dimmed. Every echo of their footsteps sounded sharper, as if the place itself was listening. Finally, they reached a massive door carved from black stone, taller than any ship Daniel had seen. Strange patterns glowed faintly across its surface, pulsing like a heartbeat. Two guards stepped forward and placed their hands on the door. The symbols flared brighter, and with a deep rumble, the door opened. Inside was a vast chamber unlike anything Daniel expected. It wasn't filled with weapons or treasures. Instead, the room glowed with light from countless crystal pillars, each one humming softly. The air was thick with memory, heavy with voices that weren't spoken but felt. "This," the elder whispered, his voice carrying like wind through leaves, "is the Hall of Memories." Daniel stepped inside, his eyes wide. The pillars stretched high into the shadows, glowing in shades of blue, gold, and silver. Each seemed alive, shifting with faint images, scenes of wars, of peace, of alien worlds rising and falling. He saw ships battling in the void, children laughing in alien cities, rulers crowned, and empires crumbling. It was like walking through history itself. What is this place?" Daniel asked quietly, afraid to break the silence. The guard leader answered, his tone respectful. "Every memory of our people. Every story, every triumph, every mistake. The keeper alone holds the key to them, and now, you walk beside him." Daniel felt his throat tighten. He reached out a hand, almost without thinking, toward one of the glowing pillars. Images swirled. An alien child crying as fire consumed her village, a warrior standing over fallen comrades, a mother singing to her baby under a broken sky. The emotions hit Daniel like waves, grief, hope, love, loss, all at once. He pulled his hand back, shaking. The elder nodded slowly. "Do you see? Memories are not just history. They are weight. They shape the present. They guide the future." Daniel swallowed hard. "Why show me this? I don't belong here." The elder's eyes locked on his. "Because you must. The prophecy is not about power. It is about understanding. Only one who acts with kindness can carry the burden of memory without twisting it." The words sank deep into Daniel's chest. He looked again at the glowing pillars. Each one was beautiful but also heavy with pain. To carry such memories was to carry both the light and the darkness of a people. The guard leader stepped closer, his silver eyes sharp. "Human, understand this. Many would kill for the right to enter this hall. Armies would burn worlds for even a fragment of what lies here. And yet you walk freely. That means your life is no longer your own. Daniel's stomach turned. He clenched his fists. I didn't ask for this. I didn't come here to be chosen. The elder placed his fragile hand on Daniel's arm. That is why you are. Those who seek power cannot be trusted with memory. But you sought nothing and gave everything. That is why the guards salute you. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment. He remembered Earth, the crowded cities, the quiet streets of home, the way people ignored the weak or stepped over the homeless. He remembered moments when he too had looked away. And now, here he was, standing in a hall that carried the weight of an entire civilization. He opened his eyes again. What do you want from me? The elder's voice softened, almost tender. Not to rule, not to fight, only to remember with us, to carry the story of compassion so others cannot forget. Daniel felt a chill run through him. It sounded simple, but he knew it wasn't. Stories had power. Stories could shape worlds. If his name became part of this hall, if his actions became a story told across the stars, then nothing in his life would ever be simple again. The guard leader lifted his arm, gesturing toward the pillars. The choice is yours, human. You may walk away now, return to your life, and this hall will remain closed. Or you may accept, and the salute you received will echo through every corner of the galaxy. Daniel stood still, staring at the glowing pillars. The memories seemed to pulse as if waiting for his answer. His heart pounded. He wanted to refuse, to go back to the life he understood. But he also remembered the elder's eyes filled with both weakness and trust. He remembered the soldiers kneeling, the crowd watching, the prophecy whispered. He had not asked for destiny, but perhaps destiny had asked for him. Daniel took a slow breath, his voice firm. I'll stay. The elder's face softened, a faint smile touching his lips. Then you are no longer a stranger. You are part of the memory. The chamber pulsed brighter, the pillars glowing as if the hall itself welcomed him. And for the first time, Daniel felt not just fear, but belonging. The Hall of Memories glowed brighter as if it had accepted Daniel into its ancient heart. The crystal pillars hummed softly, carrying voices of generations. Daniel stood still, overwhelmed. He had come as a traveler, an ordinary man searching for a seat, and now he stood marked by prophecy. The elder, frail and trembling, leaned on his staff, but his eyes shone like fire. It is done, he whispered. The memory has chosen. The galaxy will know. The guard leader bowed his head deeply, then turned toward Daniel. Human, you must understand. What happened here will not remain hidden. Word will spread across stars faster than any ship. You are no longer just Daniel. You are the witness. The title struck Daniel like a hammer. He had never wanted names, never wanted titles. But when he looked again at the elder, he saw not weight, but trust. He could not abandon it. The guards turned sharply, saluting him once more, fists slamming against armored chests. The thunder of their salute echoed across the chamber, and the vibrations rippled into the crystals. Memories flared alive, images of warriors kneeling, leaders bowing, histories shifting. It was as if the hall itself recorded this moment into eternity. Daniel's chest tightened. Why me? Why not one of your own? The elder's voice was soft but clear. Because only one who does not seek honor can truly carry it. Our people could not. They looked at me and saw rules, burden, shame. You looked and saw only a tired soul in need. Daniel's throat burned. He wanted to argue, but deep inside he knew the elder spoke truth. The guards led them back toward the great door. As it opened, light spilled into the corridor. The crowd outside had not left. They were waiting, hundreds of beings, faces from a dozen worlds. The moment Daniel stepped out, silence swept across them. Then slowly, like a wave, the crowd began to kneel. One by one, aliens lowered their heads. Clawed hands pressed to chests, wings folded, tails curled. In every shape and form, respect flowed toward the human who had given up a seat. Daniel froze, his heart hammering. He wanted to tell them to rise, to tell them he wasn't special. But the sight broke something inside him, not fear, but humility. These people were not kneeling to him as a ruler. They were kneeling to the kindness he had shown. The guard leader raised his arm, and in perfect rhythm, the elite guards struck their armor again in salute. The sound was deafening, rolling across the station like thunder. Shaking the very metal walls, Daniel whispered to the elder. I don't know if I can live up to this. The elder's frail hand rested on his. You already have. The act that made them kneel was not grand, not planned. It was simple. Remember that, and you will never fail. The words sank deep into Daniel's chest. He looked at the sea of bowed heads, the gleaming soldiers saluting, the faint glow of the Hall of Memories behind him. He realized then that the galaxy was not changed by wars alone or by crowns and thrones. Sometimes it was changed by something as small as offering a seat. The crowd began to chant softly, words in languages Daniel did not know, but their meaning was clear: gratitude, hope, respect. The chant grew louder, until the entire station pulsed with it. Daniel lowered his head, whispering to himself, "I was just being human." And in that moment, being human became something greater than he ever imagined. The elder straightened as much as his frail body allowed, his voice rising one last time for all to hear. Let it be remembered. On this day, compassion returned. On this day, the guards saluted not a warrior, not a king, but a human who gave freely. Let the galaxy carry this memory forever. The hall behind them pulsed once more, sealing the words into eternity. The salute of the guards rang again, final and thunderous. Daniel stood in the center of it all, no longer invisible, no longer ordinary. He was a symbol now, not of power, but of kindness, and as the galaxy bowed, the echo of that salute promised one truth: compassion could change everything.